Hola, em sentiu?
Hello, can you hear me?
Perdoneu, sisplau,
Our
aneu tornant als
apologies.
vostres
If
llocs,
you can please
que
take
començarem
your seats, we will
molt ràpidament.
start with the session again.
Hola a tothom. Hola a tothom. Ara sí, ja tornem a ser aquí totes I tots.
Hello, we
Gràcies
are
a tots els membres
back
de la
again.
taula anterior.
I would like to
Veig
thank
els
the
perfils.
panelists of the
Em deixen
previous
moltes eines
session.
per
Some
reflexionar
of
I en
them I'm
aquesta
still seeing
passejada que hem
here,
fet
so a lot of
des
food
del
for
parc
thought
de
they've
Barcelona,
given
Sevilla,
us, and
les
we've
Illes,
heard about
Viena.
Seville and Barcelona, the
Que hem
Balearic
recollit
Islands,
aquí
Vienna.
en poca estona.
So a lot of data,
Coses
a lot of
com
information
la
that we've gathered in a few minutes. Architectural
amb el model Approach,
refurbishment, innovation, the renovation of Can Fabra factory in Seville with a new network of collaborative living units in the Balearic Islands. And we've heard as well from Vienna, the housing emergency, the climate emergency, economic emergency, and Vienna was telling us about the quality of life. And again, we heard this in the morning. Living is about where you want to live and not how you can afford to live. So this affects whole districts and neighborhoods and whole communities, and that should be the style, and that should be indeed the philosophy. Now comes the moment of the Director of Technical Services of the Municipal Institute of Housing and Rehabilitation in Barcelona, Mr. Joan Carles Melero. We'll have a panel discussion again, moderated by him. And remember that you can use the Mentimeter and ask your questions there. You can post your questions there. The Mentimeter code for you to access the platform is 7893939. We'll know it by heart by the end of the day. And we will forward the questions to the speakers if you post some. So with no further ado, Mr. Melero has now the floor.
Sí. Molt bé, bona tarda, gràcies per la presentació.
Thank you very much.
Bueno, la introducció a aquesta taula.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to discuss management systems against the framework that we, the public institutions, work with. Management systems with the, oh yes, the face mask. Indeed. I was told before and I totally forgot. I'm having a few issues, it seems. I don't know exactly what the problem is, but it got stuck somewhere. I can cut it if necessary, but I have no replacement for it. Maybe I should go the other way around. That's far more complicated than the contract law, believe me. They have not collaborated before, that's the thing. They have never met before all along the previous part of the project. So with this system, there's something unique about it, and it affects other systems as well. And I am referring to the degree of trust vis-a-vis the authorities. So there's no room for maneuver. Now, there's an atypical situation. Raw materials have increased in terms of price exponentially. We are trying to solve this problem, and this situation is similar to what happened at IMHAB in 2019. The price increase was significant back then, and one of the first tasks that I had to carry out was to meet with the companies that were working for us, for the Municipal Institute, construction companies I'm referring to. And I remember the visit of a representative coming from a company not from Catalonia, and he said on the phone, "You and me, we need to meet." Okay, so let's meet. Side of the system. The company to the left is a company from Barcelona. They have developed a system, recycled aluminum, and it's very easy to assemble. It's their own system. And there is another model, the one to the right-hand side. So this would be out of a tender. And the third trait in the system is that the architect cannot develop the project collaborating but by the professionals that will provide the components of the future building, because simply we don't know whom those professionals will be in the future, those actually developing the buildings. So the architect is isolated, as you see in the image. They're isolated in relation to those future professionals, and that is an obstacle for them, because in the executive project phase, I'm sure it would be best to actually collaborate with the professionals that will end up building the place, and rather what happens is the opposite. Everybody meets with the contractors once the works actually are about to begin. So there's a lot of effort and there's a lot of experience that is used, and sometimes they're not even going in the same direction, but they're going in opposite directions. So all in all, this management systems surrounding tenders to promote public buildings hinders all of the construction process. It doesn't make things easy, that is clear, because there's no collaboration with the contractors during the project phase. So IMHAB has worked with a second management system. It's by law. It's a joint elaboration of the project and joint execution of the works, and then the collaboration between the project, the person who drafts the project starts from scratch with the contractors, because they need to go with a common proposal, so they submit a common proposal. There were 2 rounds to the tender, 35 points in the first round, scoring on the basis of architectural quality, and that was depending on different judgment criteria. Then secondly, environmental impact reduction, that was part of the score, and so we developed the specs and developed the score. reduction of environmental impact associated to the manufacturing of the materials with whom the structure and the facade of the building would be made. 25% of the score as well. The third section was the economic offer, 9 points. Christina, you were saying it was 10. Well, in this case, it's 9. And the final section was 6% improvement in the after-sales guarantee. So, by way of summary, in these four lots that are already being developed, 51 proposals were submitted, and they could be actually included under 9 different construction systems. I didn't bring slides corresponding to each and every one of them, just general ideas. So environmental impact reduction, for instance, here. Here's the life cycle, by the way, of CO2 emissions corresponding to a building. So material manufacturing with which to build a building, you can actually reduce this amount by 30% just by acting on the structure and the facade of the building. That's quite a lot. It's interesting, this slide, because if we take into account the building's life cycle, according to the regulations, we are only acting on 20% of the emissions generated by the building. So if we really want our job to have an impact on the CO2 emission reduction, we need to go beyond the norm, beyond the regulation. So that's why we suggest we should act upon this phase of the project, this stage. As to the second question, reduction of the development term, so right from the beginning when the tender is open until the keys handing to the residents, the average amount of time is 53 months, split into these different stages. The final 3 months correspond to the utilities, especially electricity. It's not easy to get electricity approved, and actually we could reduce these terms, these deadlines, by 35% if we took all those measures. This management system has another advantage for us, because different companies and different construction companies have collaborated. Timber manufacturing companies that had the environmental impact into account. They submitted their proposals, and that was good. Also, interesting solutions with the optimization of steel structures, for instance, optimization of the concrete structures with large slabs, as is the case here in the upper part of the image, and those are all advantages. And the possibility of switching materials is fundamental change vis-a-vis what we had been doing so far, because there's a change in material. We're moving more and more toward wood and timber, and there is also another change which goes more toward industrialization of the processes. Average price of traditional constructions in 2020, that's the average of 1,180. Some were more expensive, some were cheaper. And these 4 projects in San Martí, they had an average cost of 1,110. So there was no cost increase, even including these advantages, these solutions. So for us, for IMHAB, for Institute, there are 3 aspects here that should be improved. The contract law considers that these tenders are exceptional. Again, you need to justify things very clearly, and that's negative for us. Then the person drafting the project belongs to the construction company. So if the construction company relinquishes the proposal, so the architectural proposal goes with them as well. So the figure of the architect is not well placed, according to us, and it should be changed. And the third half negative aspect is that the contractors that supply the materials, we are seeing some proposals where the constructor, the main constructor and the architect were signing, they collaborate, but in the end it's the contractor, really, it's the professional. We would like to have a direct relation with the professionals, and that is not being easy. So it's a management system that makes it easy to use industrialized systems. It eases collaboration between the different stakeholders, yes, but in a situation that's not correct, because, as I say, the figure of the architect is not properly placed. So that's why we propose a third management system. This is still being developed, and we are working with Ignacio Aparicio and his team, and the objective is clear. We want the collaboration among the stakeholders, that's key, and second, this collaboration must be done by relocating the figure of the architect. As I said before, that's very important. This is breaking news, because not even the councillor has seen this before, so it's totally new. Now, first case.
The first thing is we need to appoint a project manager. It could be in-house or someone from the outside. The first step that the project manager needs to do is to tender the drafting of the project. That's going to be a tender. So we're going back to the first step in system number 1. The result of this tender is that we would have an architectural proposal and the first drafter. And with this basic project, plus a maximum building cost and a document that Article 99 in the Act, in the contract law, defines the purposes, the functions of the building, price and function of the building, the purpose of the building, and then there will be a tender for the contractor. Once we have the contractor, we need to create a purchase board, so to say, which would depend on the authorities and with the necessary advice of the architect. And if I'm getting it wrong, please let me know. Here, the contractor needs to bring other professionals who would provide the different components of the building, and here the representative of IMHAB and the architect in the phase of these sub-suppliers would be to validate the systems that they propose. And once these sub-suppliers are validated, then the architects along with them would draft the executive project, and then here we could start working. And there's a difference between system number 1 and this one, because in this case the works would start with a project that has been drafted collaboratively with the subcontractors, the contractors and the architect. And in this process, the authorities need to define the basic goals of their tender. One of the goals would be maximum cost. Of course, cost will be tendered. Another would be the CO2 emissions. There would be a cap on emissions, and we have a very valuable information here that we have obtained from the project tender. Here we wouldn't have points, but we would have a cap, and that should be justified. And then we will also have the deadlines. With the initial contest, we would have information on the timelines, and there would also be points would be given if the deadlines are shorter. So this would allow us to contribute, to collaborate in hiring the subcontractors, drafting the final project, and then in the end of the construction work. Our intention is to have this management system for the construction of public housing should foster collaboration between the different stakeholders, because the architect would not depend on the contractor or subcontractor alone. And this could help industrialize the constructive process, because this contract could be open to different constructive processes as long as they attain the goals established from the very beginning. And my final image is to give you a comparison with the tug of war that we had at the beginning. This symbolizes the collaboration process and the confidence building that should contribute to improving construction processes in public development. Thank you very much.
Es pot quedar dalt, si vol.
Espera. Ignacio, ¿lo dejo ahí?
Molt bé. Moltes gràcies, Joan Carles Melero, per l'explicació, que ens serveix d'introducció.
Thank you very much for this explanation. It's a good introduction for the final panel discussion that we are having today. Let me remind you that we have the Mentimeter, that you can ask the questions. They will be collected back there. They will be brought up here, and these will be then answered by our members. The code is 78939-039 and the website is menti.com.
El que faig és donar entrada a l'última taula. Les persones participants aniran pujant.
The participants of the final discussion will come up in a minute, and the moderator is going to be Ignacio Paricio.